Let's turn to your award-winning wine, your best semi-sparkling wine, Lambrusco Grasparosso di Castelvetro, Frizzante Secco numero 2. Can you tell us about this wine, explain how you make it, and what its characteristics are?
So this wine comes from, it's made out of grapes that are grown in the area between Castelfranco and Nonantola, which is a DOC area for the Grasparossa. And it's a very small plot. It's just around 4 hectares. And this plot was planted back 10 years ago. The Giacobazzi Due is the name of the wine. It's a wine that on which we put a lot of care and attention. So we basically do the hand picking, and once the grapes are taken into the winery, we cool them down thanks to refrigeration, and then we do a soft crushing and a Martinotti second fermentation.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today I'm delighted to continue a special sub-series that highlights the winners of the prestigious 5-star wines competition that took place in April, just prior to Vinitaly 2025. Those wines that scored more than 90 points were awarded certificates and have been included in the 5-star wines book, while the very best wines in each category were singled out for special awards. Today we travel to Emilia Romagna, to the vineyards of Modena, to Nonantola to meet my guest Giovanni Giacobazzi of the Giacobazzi Winery, whose wine Lambrusco Grasparossa di Castelvetro DOC Frizzante Secco numero 2 won the Best Semi-Sparkling Wine Award with a score of 93 points. This is a great achievement, so many congratulations, Giovanni. How are you today? I'm guessing it's a pretty hot day in Modena.
Yes, first of all, hello, thank you for this opportunity. Yes, today is a very hot day, so we are back with normal weather like it should be in summer. We had chilled out a bit last week, and it's going to rain again tomorrow, but so far I would say the weather is very good for the harvest, which is coming up soon.
Okay, so we are in the Po Valley, and as you say, it's normally pretty steamy there in summer, I guess. Now, Giovanni, Modena is known for many things, for wonderful foods, of course, for aceto balsamico tradizionale di Modena, for fast cars like Ferrari and Maserati, for Luciano Pavarotti and Mirella Freni, and not least for a wonderful wine much loved around the world, Lambrusco. But our listeners who are located all around the world may not know your area well. Can you tell us a little bit about Modena, about the wine country of Nonantola, where you're located? Just give us a visual description of where you are and of Modena.
Sure. So Modena is located in the northern part of Italy. It's basically between the Alps and the Apennines, so it's a valley that is very well known, as you said, for very fine foods. So it's considered the most refined cuisine area of Italy, and obviously for fast cars. Then you mentioned Pavarotti. I could mention also the figurine stickers, which named Panini. They're sold all over the world, and other very iconic things that comes from the area. So it's a small city with a lot of things that brings, by the way, a lot of tourists to us. So we don't have the sea, we don't have the mountain, but still we are considered one of the interesting cities to be visited in Italy.
Okay, and of course, the Po Valley, as you say, it's a broad, fertile valley that is really the source of so many wonderful things to eat as well as drink. And we'll be discussing perhaps the local gastronomy a little bit later in our chat. But first of all, can you share with us the story of the Giacobazzi Winery?
Yes, the Giacobazzi Winery was established by my father and my grandfather together with my uncle back in 1958. It was well before, by the way, that the activity of grape growers and farmers started in our family. In fact, we have been producing also balsamic vinegar, which we still do, and Parmesan cheese, and we had some cattle, especially pigs. But then the wine became our main activity, and as I said, back in 1958, my father, my uncle, and my grandfather decided to establish a proper winery that became through the year, I can say, quite well-known winery around the world, especially very vocated to export. We were the first wineries exporting to US in the 60s, and we try to make Lambrusco popular all over the world, basically. So this is what is moving us to go on.
Okay, so that's interesting that you were one of the you were the earliest to export to the US and in the 60s, and that was when the real Lambrusco boom began. Is that right? It was a very important for the wine growers in Modena and Reggio Emilia in the areas where Lambrusco is produced. But you've been part of this incredible story of Lambrusco really conquering the world.
Honestly, yes, I can tell that my dad was probably the first one bringing Lambrusco to US. It was back in 1964 when he flew to New York and went to the ICE office, to the Italian Trade Agency, trying to see if there was any opportunity to sell Lambrusco there. And the response from the board of each wasn't very good, but my father has always been very stubborn and very determined to do what it was in his head. So he always felt like Lambrusco is a wine that people love, so why should an American love it as well? So he kept going no matter what they said, and he was able to really open a market that then, after a few years, became a huge market where most of the Lambrusco producers were selling their wines too.
Okay, so this incredible popularity of a wine that was really very traditional in your area, very traditional, very well suited to your great regional cuisine. But of course, Lambrusco isn't one wine or one grape variety. There are a
Yeah.
number of different Lambruschi. Can you tell us about the two varieties that you specialize in, perhaps beginning with Lambrusco di Sorbara and then Grasparosso di Castelvetro? What are the qualities that each have, and how do the wines differ?
Yes, Lambrusco di Sorbara basically comes from the valley nearby the city of Modena, and it's a female grape which has a very thin skin, a white pulp, and is well known for the elegance of the wine, for the acidity. In fact, is ideal also for bottle fermented wines, eventually even wide vinification, the same as Pinot Noir. And Lambrusco Grasparossa di Castelvetro, which is the other DOC that you mentioned, comes basically from the hills nearby Modena, is very different from Lambrusco di Sorbara because has a very dark color, a thick body, persistent foam, and is very fruity, more powerful. It's more rounded. So even though they are both Lambrusco, they are very different one to each other.
Okay, so I think that's important for our listeners to understand. Lambrusco is not wine of one style at all, and the different varieties are making completely different wines. Lambrusco di Sorbara, this pale pink Lambrusco, the acidity making it such a good partner to foods, and then that deeper color, the more fuller style of the Grasparosso di Castelvetro. Giovanni, you mentioned that the sorbara is suited to fermentation in the bottle. You make wines by both the Martinotti method as well as by the Metodo Classico. Tell us a little bit about secondary fermentation in the bottle. Lambrusco is almost always either a frizzante or a fully sparkling wine. Is that correct?
It is correct. And as you mentioned, Lambrusco, obviously back to the origin of Lambrusco, it was bottle fermented, and basically it was bottle fermented according to the ancestrale method, which means kept the yeasts and the sediments inside the bottle, so we had a cloudy wine, more rusty, more eventually authentic. And the metodo Martinotti is the one that we use the most, which is basically the same method that Prosecco uses, so in the autoclaves. So there's a second fermentation done after adding selected yeasts, which is taken into these autoclaves under controlled pressure and temperature. While the metodo classico is the same of the metodo champenoise, they call it in French, is, I would say, the newest age of Lambrusco. Especially, we've been introducing this technique back to, I would say now, almost 20 years. And we also do a bottle fermented Lambrusco metodo classico with white vinification. What I think is important to say that for this bottle fermented Lambrusco, the Lambrusco di Sorbara grape, according to our experience, is the one that has the highest potential. As you said, because of the acidity, because of the low tannins, because the thin skin. So it's very suitable for long aging into the bottles after the second fermentation.
Okay, whereas the Martinotti method keeps that freshness and the fruit more, is that right?
Is that right? Then if you keep longer Martinotti method, you can also have a sense of yeasts of bread crust, the same as you may have
Okay,
obviously in a higher notes in the bottle fermented wines. But typically
okay.
when you go with the Martinotti, you go for crispy wines, fresh wines, friendly wines also.
Let's turn to your award-winning wine, your best semi-sparkling wine, Lambrusco Grasparossa di Castelvetro, Frizzante Secco numero 2. Can you tell us about this wine, explain how you make it, and what its characteristics are?
So this wine comes from, it's made out of grapes that are grown in the area between Castelfranco and Nonantola, which is a DOC area for the Grasparossa. And it's a very small plot. It's just around 4 hectares. And this plot was planted back 10 years ago. The Giacobazzi Due is the name of the wine. It's a wine that on which we put a lot of care and attention. So we basically do the hand picking, and once the grapes are taken into the winery, we cool them down thanks to refrigeration, and then we do a soft crushing and a Martinotti second fermentation. So the idea of this wine is to get the most ripeness of red berries that you can get. Typically the strawberry, the blueberry, sour cherry also, which are the typical notes of the Grasparossa. And we try not to have that much of the tannin and old school style of Grasparossa, because we try to keep it somehow also very elegant and very refined, because we believe that Grasparossa has also a lot of things to tell beside the power, beside the structure. So we try to highlight more the fruity notes and the flowery notes.
I'll just read the judge's tasting note. This wine, as I say, received 93 points, which is a very high score. A decidedly serious Lambrusco. This beautiful, deep ruby red wine has a very smooth perlage and typical notes of blackberries and blackcurrant. Very well balanced structure and a long finish. Would you say that's a fair description?
That's it. That's perfect. It's what I definitely feel when I drink that wine, for sure.
Okay. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Emilia-Romagna is truly one of Italy's greatest food regions, and Modena in particular is very much food city, a place people come to enjoy the local foods paired with this wonderful fresh Lambrusco, which tastes so wonderful when you're actually in the region. Let's turn to the gastronomy of your area, and in particular, some of the local dishes or foods. You've mentioned Parmigiano Reggiano, of course, and there's so many salumi that pair particularly well with Lambruschi and in particular with the Grasparossa di Castelvetro.
Yes, it's correct. Then it depends basically on what you're looking for and what your palate is used to. I have friends that love the sorbara. I have friends that love the Grasparossa. And personally, I believe that both wines are ideal to be paired with local foods. Eventually, in the city of Modena and in the valley of Modena, we're more used to the sorbara, while if you go just a little bit towards south of the province, nearby the hills, then the mood is more for Grasparossa. In the end, again, both wines are ideal for our cuisine because they have this nice acidity which helps to clean the mouth after having our food, which is typically a very flavorful food. Sometimes it's a fatty food because it comes from the pigs. You can imagine like the lasagne, tortellini, tagliatelle with ragu sauce. And so this wine, which is very, very light, very gentle, but with this nice acidity, with nice fruity notes, helps really to keep a nice balance into the mouth while having our local food. By the way, we drink sorbara also, and I sell sorbara even abroad, and they pair it with so many kind of food. So especially fish, which you wouldn't tell, but like we sell it to a lot of restaurants to Japan, where they love it with sushi or with fish soups, because it's very easy to pair.
That's really interesting that this style of wine pairs so well with many different types of cuisines. So sushi with sobara, I can imagine that's a very, very good pairing. What about with the grasparosa? Any other cuisines that are suited to pairing with grasparosa?
Yes, for sure. Grasparosa, I see that it is very well appreciated even with ethnic food, especially if it is spicy food or sweet and sour. More structured food are ideal to be paired with Grasparosa because it also has this body, this thickness that supports this type of foods, but at the same time has a very nice acidity, which you wouldn't tell
Okay.
because when you drink Grasparosa, you don't really feel the acidity, but it's there and you find it in the very end of your tasting with this rinsing that you have in your mouth.
Okay, so this deeply colored, foaming red wine with this beautiful backbone of acidity. Yes, I think it's such a great food wine, whatever one is choosing to eat. Giovanni, finally, let's just turn to wine hospitality. I know, as you say, Modena is a city that's very popular with tourists. Can people visit the Giacobazzi winery, and what do you offer for wine visitors?
Yes, sure. We have in our historical winery that is located in the heart of Nonantola, our headquarters where people can come, obviously visit the winery and see how we do produce our wines. But most of all, we also have a nice museum where we have all the tools, or let's, I would say the most important tools of our heritage, which goes back almost 100 years because that building was established in 1929. So people can compare the way of producing wine back in the beginning of last centuries and nowadays. Besides that, we do have a nice part in our museum that belongs to motorsports because we have been partners of Ferrari, especially for many, many years. So we have our collections of both Formula One cars and street cars, mostly from Ferrari, but we also have a couple of Maserati and some other nice things that people can see when it comes to visit us. Obviously, we have an hospitality area where we can taste our wines, we can serve some good food from the area in order to give a 360 idea of what's modern.
And is the family still making aceto balsamico tradizionale di Modena?
Yes, we do. Yes, we still do that.
So again, that's something visitors could taste and buy.
Yes, for sure. We do sell our balsamic vinegar in our shop, and they can even, definitely taste it. And in fact, one of the most appreciated tours ends with some bites of Parmesan cheese, chunks with balsamic vinegar, obviously the traditional one, which might be even the regular traditional that is 12 years old minimum, or the extra vecchio, extra old, that is minimum 25 years old. And obviously wines.
Well, Giovanni, thank you very much for telling us about Modena, about the Nonantola and the Giacobazzi story, the family history of producing Lambruschi, and sharing with us what the region has to offer. It's been a pleasure meeting you here this morning, and I hope you have a great summer.
Thank you so much, Mark. The pleasure was mine. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, which is always very important to us. The family winery like ours is very important to us to being able to reach people and tell them our story. So thank you. Great.
Thank you, and buona giornata.
Grazie. You too. Have a good day and a good summer too. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like share, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.